Welcome to Taste the Mango and our guide to the most popular and frequently asked questions about direct inquiry. And the question we're going to start with on today's video is, what is direct inquiry? So, Katrin, do you want to kick us off by giving us an answer to that question, and then we'll get into a little chat about it?
Okay, so direct inquiry, the way we currently try to define it, is a direct looking at current experience. So in contrast to thinking about it or hypothesizing or philosophizing, it's looking directly at what is going on. And it's without referencing any prior knowledge we have, any beliefs or things we've been taught, things we've learned. So that's what we mean by direct looking. So it's unfiltered. And the idea is not to pay any attention to what is going on in terms of thoughts, feelings, sensations, or perceptions. And what this does, if we can do all of that, is that we can recognize a different part of reality, the surrounding part, or the what we call true nature part of reality.
Okay, so let's unpack a little bit of that. Some great words in there. So we first of all mentioned about it's a direct looking, and by direct you mentioned what that isn't, which isn't referencing anything that turns up in the content of our experience that is based on past knowledge, a belief, an idea, something we've learnt, a concept. It's not referencing anything like that. It's instead trying to look at the piece of the experience which is before or behind that, rather than the content. Is that right?
Yeah, so let's take just looking at an apple. Okay? So we're having the experience of an apple. So even the word apple would be too much for inquiry, right? Because that this is an apple that I'm looking at is based on prior knowledge. It's a word that I've learned. It's a concept, a belief. So we're trying to move towards direct experience without any form of footnote, any qualification or anything we add on to it, which we do all the time automatically. So it's actually quite difficult because we're so used to doing that we don't even notice. So you could say that this is sort of like a scientist who, a NASA scientist who lands on Mars and for the first time is seeing things that they don't have a name. That's how we want to look at our experience right now. Yes.
And the metaphor I sometimes like, or the illustration is, if you can imagine like a sort of 18-month-old infant, they haven't learned all the concepts and ideas about the world, about the perceptions, thoughts and sensations that are appearing. They're ignorant to that. They don't have that, just like if the Martian was coming to our planet and looking. So we're trying to strip back and split out two parts of the human experience that are normally merged together. Normally, we focus on the content of our thoughts, sensations, and perceptions, and that's the bit that fascinates us. And we spend our lives being fascinated by that. And what we're saying with direct inquiry is there's another piece of experience that's normally merged in that we don't see it, which is the piece, if you want to say before or behind or the content, and that's the bit we're looking at. But that has no description or concept or construct to it.
Yeah. The other metaphor is the words on the page. So we're trying to look at experience, to notice, to become aware of the white of the page while ignoring the words. So the white of the page here is the direct experience, and the words are thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions.
Right. And what you mentioned is that when we're able to make this distinction and see that, we recognize something that's always been there about our experience with what we call the essential nature. And then we can explore that without the distraction of all the content.
Yes. And that's really important, because that is what inquiry is about. It's about recognizing that before, behind, beneath, beyond all this content that we're constantly paying attention to. But the important part is that we don't have to get rid of the content. So we're not trying to achieve some a state where we're not thinking or not feeling or not having any perceptions. We're trying to see that what is more than that.
Right. And that's a really useful distinction. So sometimes it's helpful to define direct inquiry by what it isn't. So maybe we just spend 30 seconds saying how it's different to something that it might sound similar to, which would be meditation. So can you say a little bit about that?
So most people, the way they learn meditation now, it's the mindfulness meditation version, or it's focusing on the breath, on a candle or some object. And then usually it also has a component of becoming aware of, for example, thoughts, feelings, watching them come and go, maybe sometimes even naming them. So it's focused on the content, and inquiry is sort of the exact opposite. It's ignoring the content, so we're not paying attention to the thoughts, feelings, sensations. We're not naming them. We're not watching them come and go. We are noticing what is there always around all of that, before, beyond, whatever. It's not somewhere, so we can't give it a position in space or time, but it's there.
Yes. So whereas it might sound quite similar to meditation, it's actually quite different, because we're focusing on we're going back a little further. That's the way I sometimes describe it. We're going back not to try and get an empty mind or to get a clear mind or to get a peaceful mind. We're not doing anything to do with that. We're looking what's there before the mind's got into a clear state, or whatever you might call it. So it is actually quite different to meditation. And it's also quite different to, say, self-reflection. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so self-reflection always involves thinking, feeling, reflecting in a mental or a emotional, or even there's bodily reflecting, somatic reflecting. All of that is content in our definition here. So all of that would be looking at what is happening, whereas inquiry is always the question, what is aware of what is going on? And that's an important part of it, that this what is aware of question always points back and beyond the content. So reflecting would be, any form of reflection would be, again, thinking about, reflecting on the content. And here we're pointing exactly in the opposite direction.
Exactly. And we're not saying there isn't sometimes value in doing these other things like reflection or meditation or mindfulness. We're just saying that's not what inquiry is. And in other videos, we're going to talk about why we think it's so important that this often overlooked piece is missing from people's journeys to having better lives. So let's just make a quick summary then of what we're saying direct inquiry is. So direct inquiry is when we explore but not via thinking, which we'll talk about in another video. One of the common pitfalls is we try and think about this space before thought. It's when we explore the direct experience in the very moment without referencing, paying any regard or attention to the content of what we might be thinking, feeling, or perceiving. And instead, we're noticing what is there anyway at our, what we're describing as our essential nature. Now, would you like to add to that summary?
No, if this makes absolutely no sense, that's perfectly fine. Because it's all about trying, and in the trying, we figure it out. But this definition is really important, kind of just to orient the mind to, it's an introduction to something that we really can't put into words, though we're doing the best we can with bad instruments and hoping that it will give some form of frame.
So if people now are interested to know, well, why are we doing this? How do I do it? Then check out our other videos. But this video is just about a definition of inquiry. And if you have any questions or comments or feedback, please do let us know. We want Taste the Mango to be an interactive learning community. So until next time, have fun being curious.